December the 17th, 5 o'clock. Let the record show that all members are present. The roll call voting on the day will be Isaac, Sanchez, Tuttle, Bailey, Nopal, Mathis, and Lyman. Audience visitors. Anybody have anything to talk about?
Open to the floor, you mean?
Yes, sir.
And I'm here to represent myself and Petco. We've had an opportunity, we met with Mr. Hall from Shiloh when we heard about the 1% tax issue, just to try to inform ourselves of what the potential was, what, I don't know who picked the Illinois School Facilities Occupation Tax. I mean, who came up with that name, but a very interesting theory on how to provide more money to local schools. I talked to some of the surrounding counties on some that were positive, and Coles County that was negative. Coles was the one that, other than Tuscola, that really should have been positive. And I know the timing has been very quick from when we found out about it. I know you people have met over maybe the last couple months with the knowledge of what was going on, and when the ballot has to be set, or at least the notion question has to be put by the end of this month, which is a short time frame. But I think Petco fully supports the idea that we should put that on the ballot as quick as possible. We've been very successful in Paris in bringing industry to town. We have not been as successful bringing people to town. And you guys are a big part of that. That's a wonderful facility. And you talk about a marketing thing. The people that have looked at our new school, that is some things that makes people want to come to Paris. Real estate taxes are something that really hurts us, especially being as close to Indiana as we are. And if anybody knows me very well, they know I am not a tax person. I have a lot of problems with the real estate system and the school funding system. That's why real estate taxes are so high. So I'm just like everybody else, I'm not for a tax. This tax seems to be fairly unique in that it's spread over, it's not a regressive tax. If you drive through Symington or NAL or Walmart, you'll see 30 or 40% of those cars are from out of state. When those people buy gas, buy food, buy anything at Walmart or any of the other stores, they would support our schools through that. I just think it's an issue that the public's fairly interested in. I've had both very positive comments and I've had some negative comments, but I think that's an issue that the public should be allowed to have an opinion on through the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Anybody else? Okay. Consent agenda. I'd like to break that down into two sections if we could. The minutes for the last meeting. Get a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So will each member please respond to the motion? Isaac.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Nopal.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
I was yes. The second half of that is our financial part of it. I have a couple of questions, if you could help me out.
Hannah did not print out the percentage sheet for you. I think
I've
she
got
just said,
I've
you
got
got,
it.
okay.
Yeah, I did it myself, so I know where we are. What percent of the local revenue have we received?
We've received all the property taxes.
All the property
Yes.
taxes, okay.
All that we're gonna receive.
We haven't
We probably
received the
didn't
corporate.
No, not all of our corporate
Okay.
personal property.
Okay.
Other local taxes, you had asked me something about, or not local taxes, but local revenue is like your lunch program, your
Yeah.
fees to ball games, those.
I'm just talking about
The property taxes,
the property
we've got all
taxes,
ours.
basically. So we've got all of that, so we've got 100% of the
Local
property
share,
tax,
yes.
the local property tax. And I show that number as 3,207,095.36.
Okay, that should be close enough, yeah.
we budgeted 2,008,11640, so we're about 400,000.
Yeah, sometimes we get receive more, and some of that local, I'm not sure if you're maybe looking at some of our other revenue too, to get you the exact figure on the property
Well,
tax.
the revenue is what I got from the treasurer's office, so I'm not looking on anything.
Okay.
I'm
Sometimes we
looking at- I'm
receive
looking at
more,
what
they
we-
collect
what we
more.
Budgeted, yeah,
Yeah,
and we also, levied for 2216023.
right.
So we actually budgeted for more than we levied for, and we actually received more than we,
Sometimes we do, and you're looking at bond money too as well on that.
I'm looking at everything that was on the levy sheet.
Okay, so.
Now,
because we
I
look
may
at
have,
bond.
that was last, I don't think we have any on there this year.
Right. Well, we have bond payments, and
Yeah.
that comes in the tax.
Okay, but I think it was, I can dig it out if you want me to look at it.
No, I'll just get all that for you.
Okay, and then if I take the local taxes received out of the income received, that's what basically we have received from the state, is that correct? All right, and that general state aid is, about 2892. 55 is 41%, which is what we,
Right, yeah.
this year has gone by. We've actually, received, according to what I subtracted, well, that was what we should have received. 5/7 of that is 2188075, so we received more than we.
Yeah, sometimes we do, and sometimes payments come, and we get grant dollars,
Okay.
and
The total revenue, the total general state aid budgeted, I have is 5,251,379. Is that pretty close? If we take the percentage received, or expenses, we're at 43.38% for the year,
Mhm.
and we should be at spending at the rate of 41.67, so we're slightly higher.
Yeah,
We're receiving at the rate of 55% of our total, and spending we should be spending at the rate of 41.67, which is 5/7 for the month. So if I take the state and divide it by 5, we're looking at average of around 580,000 a month, 578, 570, is that close?
we get close, yeah.
Okay, then if I take that times 7, then we still have 4,050,000 roughly to receive from the state this year.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're including it, we get grants in our Title I, and, yeah, from the state,
That,
yes.
yeah, from the state only.
We get state grants though as
Yeah.
well, so.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the
Okay.
state only. And have we received any of the supplemental payments? As part of this.
We have gotten some of our supplemental, but I really would have had all that broken down if you would have just asked me ahead of time. I can get that for you.
Well, I thought you were breaking it down each month.
Yeah, well,
But
she
since I
said she
didn't
just
get it,
didn't.
I broke it down. I just
Okay.
want to make sure I'm breaking it down right. And so if I take that number from our budgeted expenses, we still have 6,500,000 left for this year to expend, and I only see 4,050,000 coming in. That leaves a deficit of $2,461,936, minus our surplus up here, the 1,109, which puts us on a path right now for a $1.3 million deficit. Is that, where have I made my mistake?
I just think I'm gonna have to get you more figures because you're probably
I mean,
not
they're all
looking at
right
some of
here.
our state grants that will probably still come in. You're not looking at, because we're about where we should be budget-wise, what we budgeted, and some of our, payments may have been delayed. We're probably still gonna get more categoricals, and those usually come late, so if everything
I
doesn't
mean, have we
come.
received any category?
Well, I'm gonna have to look at that for you, yeah. But I can check all of that. I don't
If I
think
use
we're
these
in,
numbers that are on this sheet,
unless we don't receive what we were told we would receive, and sometimes those are late, we should be pretty close on budget.
what are the categories?
We are close, the
If we receive
transportation,
the
the special
category,
ed, the special
What
ed,
number would that be?
the special ed personnel. We should get all of those, but they could be delayed. Transportation was reduced. So I'd say we're close to, we budgeted what we were projected and told we would get. And we haven't spent over what we budgeted. So I can get you exactly, we have a finance
We're a
meeting.
little over, we're about 2%.
Well, a little bit, maybe, yeah, because at the first of the year, we spend more on
We're
supplies.
also at 55% of our
Right,
revenue for the year versus 41.67 is we're in the 5 months.
yeah, and we
You might
always
just,
spend more.
you might just check that out and
Right.
see, it doesn't add up to me right now.
And we can be glad to have finance committee meetings as well. and go through that.
Okay, and the bills payable fund summary
Mhm.
shows 308,000, and we're averaging about 997. So there's 600,000 that's not on here up through the second week in the month.
And that just must have been what she took in for this month, so. And a lot of the bills we pay at the first of the year, we do pay a lot higher because we're paying a lot of our supplies and things, so they won't always average that, so. If you'd have called me ahead of time, I'd have all this for you, I really didn't. I mean, that's fine, I can get it all for you and tell you.
Well, I just
exactly what
had
it is.
some questions that I wanted to make sure I was thinking correctly.
But we have maintained where we said we would be on the budget, and unless we do not receive everything it was indicated that we would receive, we should be pretty close to, ending the year where we projected, so. Of course, you never know, we may
You might
not
take
get a
You might
state
take a
aid
look at
payment.
that and tell me where I made my mistake. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't.
Or where we're not seeing what's
where-
come in.
Where I don't see the revenue
Okay,
coming in, that's what, I guess, and if there's other revenue that I can't find in here, because,
okay,
but I know what this says we
Right.
received, and I know what we said we're gonna receive for the year, and if I take that difference.
right, it doesn't always come in.
My figures may be
in-
off from, a state revenue.
Right, and it doesn't come in just
Time,
exactly
yeah.
the same every month, so that's gonna skew it a little bit as well.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
As long as you're talking about revenue, have you had any indications that you're gonna lose 2 GSA payments at the end of the year?
There's been talk of that if the state stays in the shape they are, that we very easily could. We went to, this was discussed at one of the meetings we went to. Now it's been said specifically to us, but if the state budget stays the same, and of course they don't have a budget, but whatever they told the schools that we would receive, that we actually could, if there's no other option, that might happen. Now, that hasn't come down from state board or anything that way. We went to a professional meeting and heard some of those talks, which would be devastating for all
It
this.
would be catastrophic.
Right. Yes, it would.
Okay, I entertain a motion to accept the financial portion of that,
So
we're gonna look into it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial part of the consent agenda. Isom,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Nopel,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
I vote yes. Brings us to the superintendent's agenda.
Did we do secretaries?
Oh, we didn't, I'm sorry. You got anything for it?
Not gonna go.
I didn't know it did.
I can see the look on his face.
Well, you know I like to go.
All right, be it so.
Public speaking. No hand.
Nothing there?
No, it's fine.
Okay. The next is the park presentation, and we'll go ahead with that. It's not okay. The principals are here this evening, and we received our test scores, and we have a PowerPoint presentation to go over the last year's testing scores.
So I'm going to begin the evening with just giving you general information for the district, and then Gary's going to follow, talk about memorial assessments, followed by Amy and Jeremy giving the park scores for their respective schools. And then finally, we'll conclude with the overall improvement plan, followed by the accountability model. So that's what's included in the PowerPoint here. I just want to say too that before we begin, If you want any of this information to take a little closer look at, the site is illinoisreportcard.com. So that site gives you, our information from Paris as well as any school in the state of Illinois. So I always like to get on it. I know this probably seems weird, but I like to get on it, look at my hometown and see how they did, or, look at Champaign and those kinds of things to compare. So it's sort of fun to do that. Okay, getting started with the district information then, just for your review, PARCC stands for the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. That's where they're coming up with that name. And 12 states across our country use PARCC for their state assessment. And they are adding to that. Next year, for example, the Department of Defense is going to start as their assessments for our overseas schools. So it's not just something that's going away. It seems like other organizations are going to use that as well for their assessment. So when we look up there, you can see that we've got 27%. This is overall as a district. Doesn't include our high school students that met or exceeded as compared to the state average of 33%. So, both scores, whether it's us or you're looking at the state, much lower than ISAT. There's just, no comparison between the two. We knew it was going to be that way. It's no surprise. This state is completely in line to our new standards, as well as the expectation on the questions on this test compared to our old ISAT. It's just so much more challenging. Students are writing long essays, and in math they're expected to reason and model and apply, and so they definitely up the expectations. Moving on then to some of the other items up there, the graduation rate of our high school students is up to 83%. That's the highest it's been in 5 years, so we're definitely on the good side going up on that. The state average is 86, but congratulations to Dave on making improvements on getting that graduation rate up there. Our student mobility rate at 14%, that's a little bit lower than it has been in the past year, so that's good too, because we like to keep our students with us. We don't like them moving around because they're more likely to be successful if they stay in one school district. The state has an average of 12%, so we're just slightly above the state average on that category. Low income, we seem to be consistently in 60% overall, and that's stayed fairly consistent over the years. Our homeless at 4%, again, that's been consistent too. We just seem to fall in that category there. One thing that I think that's interesting to note, if you look at student enrollment, you look at this year, we are up about 130 students. So we have continued to, you can see, go up in enrollment, and especially this past year, where other school districts tend to go down. So that's good. Moving on then, specifically looking at some of the performance levels on our state test. They divide now up into 5 categories. You can see the 5 categories there. They also assign a number to each category. So if you're a student that scored and exceeds, you will get a number 5 on the report that goes home with each student. Meets would be a 4, approaching's a 3, partially met's a 2, and it did not meet's a 1. So of course we'd like our students to be scoring in the 4 and 5, the meet and exceeds category. And approaching, they've added this one. I think they did that on purpose, obviously because it's a good thing. It lets you know if your students are at least getting close. So if you add up our approaching, our meets, and our exceeds, we have 60%. If you would add up the states, approaching, meet, and exceed, it's 61%. So you can see there we're very close to the state average when you look at those 3 categories. Just a little information on our staff. For teacher demographics, you can see up there that we have 68 teachers in the K through 8 district, and we have about 53% of our teachers that have their postgraduate degrees, and that's the highest it's been in the last 5 years, so that's a good thing. We like our teachers to continue on with their education. for the demographics, I like this slide because it lets you know that I think we've got happy teachers. We've got about 91% of our teachers retention rate, which is very high. Compare that to the state of 85%. And I just tried to think of, well, what teachers do leave our district? Well, it's mostly retired teachers that leave our district. And occasionally you'll get a teacher that just leaves the community because spouse got a job elsewhere. But most of the time, the teachers that we employ stay with us. Average class size is 19 for us, 19 students to one teacher. We are below the state average for 21 students to every teacher. We see we have risen a little bit from 2014, but then we have acquired more students as well. The administration ratio, now this is quite a bit of a difference here. For our district, we have 292 students for every one administrator, as compared to the state, 173 students for every one administrator. But I know Connie has done a conscientious job of keeping the administrative costs down, as well as Gary, Amy, Jeremy, Connie, all taking on extra duties to make sure we can keep those administrative costs down. So that sort of just an overview of the district information, and next Gary will be presenting on his course.
I don't want anybody to take any offense to me presenting and running, but I need to get back to Memorial for our concert tonight. So I will stick around for questions, but you'll have to ask me now instead of toward the end. So please, don't do that. So Memorial, you can see our demographics there. I want to highlight our 94% attendance rate. As you look at a student at a school, kindergarten through second, we have a lot of sniffles, sneezes, coughs, those kinds of things that parents react to, and we sometimes encourage them to keep their children home so that we don't spread these things around classrooms. And so at 94%, I'm pleased with that. Now, we do have some attendance issues where parents are making the best choices by keeping their kids home, and I've worked harder this year to get out to those parents and encourage those parents and make the home visits, and especially if I see a pattern. So I'd like to see that go up, but at the same time, in my situation where we are so interactive, a lot of times it's just better for our kiddos to stay home. And then you can highlight the low income rate of 64% there. So when we are working with students who are coming to us with very little, and we are asking them to do quite a bit, especially by the time they leave us in second grade. So what I'm going to show you tonight is I don't have PARCC information. Now, we can say that the third grade PARCC information is ours. We own that because as third graders, they've only been at Wentz for a number of months, and then they spent their kindergarten, first and second grade years with us. But since we don't have that data to call ours, we use our universal screener AimsWeb. And what I've done for you up here is I've put the last 3 years worth of data. And what we're looking at, what we want to look at is the red and the green, because that, at this point, is what we've tested in fall and winter. Now, the first thing I want to highlight is in the 2015-16 school year, the trend lines I've seen go down. And the reason that is AimsWeb is a norm-based test September, January, and May. And we as a building decided this year that we wanted to give the test in August and December. And so we're giving this test about a month earlier than what it has to be given. And we did that because we decided that we wanted to get data on our students as soon as they walked in our doors versus 3 or 4 weeks in. We thought this would be much better, more accurate data on what they know walking in versus what they know 4 weeks after instruction has started. But I want to highlight, even though we're giving this test earlier in the fall and in the winter, we have still come in at or a little bit above benchmark in every test that we've given. And this year, and I'm going to bring, I need to talk to Mrs. Sutton first, but I want to bring some teachers here in January and February to talk to you a little bit about our win time. That's for what I need. And we're using our Ames Web data, we're using classroom data to break students down into what they need, to individualize that instruction even further than what teachers are already doing in their classrooms. And that was another reason why we wanted to give the test as early as we could, so we could get data right away. And what we're hoping is we're going to hit some of those foundational issues to help them be and get to be better readers by the time they leave us. Because the one thing we know about PARCC is they're going to be asked to do more analyzing and thinking and reading, and if they don't have the foundational skills to know how to read, they're never going to be successful on PARCC. And so in kindergarten in the fall, we give letter naming. So all a student has to do on the letter naming test is look at a bunch of letters on the page and name them. They know an L is an L or an A is an A, and they can do that in both upper and lower case. And in the fall, the target is 13. You can see we came in there about 15. And in the winter, it's 38. And we are at what I would say 40 and a half or 41. And so in my mind, we've made a pretty huge gain there in kindergarten letter naming to go from about 15 to winter about 41. So that speaks volumes to not only my kindergarten teachers, but also using the data and getting these students what they need in that win time. And because we've implemented that, in the winter and the spring, we give letter sound. So now it's not only identifying letter, but making the right sound. So the TD says tuh, tuh. And they have to do that in a minute. All these tests are timed in a minute. And again, we've given the test earlier, but our benchmark in the winter is 20, and we're at 20, we'll call it 24. And again, we've turned it down, but we've given this a month earlier as well. So what I'm hoping to see next year is that trend line goes back up, because we're going to implement, or maybe our fall may not, but our winter should trend up. Phoneme segmentation, they are now taking that word, they're breaking it apart to sound it out. Again, early reading skills. If they come across a word they don't understand, they can sound those words out. In this, we only give this in the spring, or the winter, excuse me. Our winter target is 18, and we're coming somewhere in there between 24 and 30, so 26 maybe. I'm sorry I don't have those. I could have given you charts and graphs and everything, but I wanted to show you how we look the 3 years I've been principal there. Nonsense words, again, this is a consonant, vowel, consonant word, but it's not a real word, it's a nonsense word. And you might say, well, why are you making them sound out words and say words that aren't real words? Because we want to see that they can sound these words out and sound these letters out individually. And again, this is only a test that we give in the winter and the spring, and the nonsense word target in the winter was 19, and we're coming in 19, 20 there. Now, what my kindergarten teachers and titled staff, and we use everybody that we can get our hands on during our win time. And what they have done is, for those students who came in well above average or above average on letter naming in the fall, then we started. So we had some who were in letter sound groups. We had some who were in nonsense word groups, because we knew those areas were going to be tested in the winter. And so if they knew their letter names, then we moved them into the next skill. Popcorn words, those high frequency words that they need to see when they read. So we moved them all into these groups so that we hope to see some growth when we took the test in the winter. Then we move on to first grade. In first grade in the fall, we give letter naming, letter sound, like we do in kindergarten. But in the winter, we don't give those anymore. We know that by the time they get to be a first grader, they should know their letter names and their letter sounds. Now, we had some in those groups in our win time who took the test in the fall and didn't score well in their letter names and their letter sounds. So we've been identifying those, we've been working on those. We currently have 2 students in first grade who are still working on letter names. That's what we want to see. We want to move all of those kids out so that they are reading, they are working on those higher level first grade skills and not the lower kindergarten skills as a first grader. So our phoneme segmentation, because it's still very important that they can break those words up in first grade and sound words out so that they can read. In the fall, our target was 35 and we scored well above at 48. Our winter benchmark is 40, and that is trending up, where everywhere else we've seen we've kind of trended down because we've given this test earlier. So that speaks volumes to what my first grade teachers are doing, in that they have recognized the deficit in the fall, and they have worked very hard to get our students to be able to sound those words out. And again, it's another year of maturity as well. Our nonsense word group in first grade, again, we're trending up. There, the fall was 27, and the winter benchmark was 45, and so we're well above there. And our RCBM, this is how fluently they can read. How many words in a minute can a student read? And for a first grader, we want them to read 30. And we are reading, I looked at this number today because I thought initially we were below target in this area, but we are not. Target is 30, we are at 35 and a half. This is the first time a first grader takes a words per minute test. They don't take it in the fall, this is the first time. Those students who scored well above average in letter naming, letter sound, and phoneme segmentation in the fall went into our enrichment group, and they started doing this, and they started working on this. All of the students who were in the enrichment group scored well above average or above average when they took this test in the winter, which is again what we want to see, and we average above benchmark here in reading. Second grade, my second grade team, we sat down this summer and we talked about what data are we going to use to make our win groups. Data is not quite as easy to come by in second grade because they're not testing as much. And their testing is a little bit different, and it's a little harder to really understand just exactly, because by second grade, it's less foundational and more application. By second grade, and we really want them to have mastered all of that those foundational skills. My second grade team today said, the more data we can have, the happier we are, because we don't want to just rely on one piece. We want as much as we can get, which I have been so proud of my second grade team, because they have really embraced using data to drive. I mean, and I don't want to take away from the other grade levels, but my second grade team is saying, let's get more versus I don't want to test. So in our second grade RCBM, which is again words per minute for a second grader, our fall was 55 and we came in a little below 60, and our winter is 80 and we're right over that at 80. And then our maze, and that is a comprehension test. They have to read a sentence and pick the word that best fits in the sentence. For the fall, because it's a new test, the benchmark is 4, and in the winter it's 9. And you can see that in second grade in the winter we're above 12. So overall, I was very pleased. I went to my second grade team today, and they met during our collab time and put this down in front of them and said, you should be so proud of yourselves, because I've just been walking around ecstatic. I've seen my title teachers and my grade level teachers, and just look at this data. I mean, we are above benchmark everywhere, and I give that to the teachers because they have come on board with me this year, and they're making this win time work. And it has taken a little bit of time out of instruction. I mean, it's 30 minutes. Every grade level has 30 minutes of win time every day. And my teachers are feeling that they're feeling that 30 minutes. But at the same time, when we look at scores like this, it's so important, it's so relevant that we work on those foundational skills and really hone in on what they need, so that when they get to third grade, they can be doing what PARCC expectations are. And so I'll be interested to see next year's third graders and the next year, like my first graders now, I'll be interested to see what they look like when they get to third grade on this test, because we are working, and I'm very aware of what PARCC is asking our third graders to do. And I'm going to my teachers and I'm saying, okay, what can we do? How can we help where we are? Because it is important. I mean, as soon as they walk in the door as kindergartners, we have to be aware that by the time they get to third grade, they're going to be, the expectations that are being put on third graders are humongous. And there's a lot for my kindergarten, first and second graders to do before they get to third grade. So we are working, and I think our data here shows that what we're doing is working, and we are looking at how we can improve our writing, because I know writing is the next big push. My teachers came back fired up from our science in service 2 weeks ago. I've had more science experiments going on in the building, and it's been awesome to walk through and just watch what they're doing with our kids. They are tremendous, and they're doing an excellent job, and they're embracing, and they're trying new things because they know it's important. They may not always like it, but they do it because they know it's right for the kids. And they sometimes keep me grounded by saying, do you understand how old our kids are? And is it developmentally appropriate for them to be doing some of these things? And I'll challenge them by saying, for some, this is the best 6 hours they have. And we need to capitalize that while they're here. Because some are doing so much with so little, and we need to capitalize that while they're in our school. So my doors are always open. Please come in and see what my teachers are doing. Watch what they do, because they do so much with kids. And I have been challenging them to put the fun back into it too, because I don't want kindergartners not to like school because we're demanding too much of them. So come in any time. And because I have to leave, please, if you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to come in or call or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
I know. I know. I was like,
Did you go get your shot, Amy?
what?
Did you go get your shot?
No, I have an appointment. At Wynn's, we do get the park, ELA, English Language Arts, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Math, they also test 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The ISAT before, we tested science in 4th grade. This year, it was not, science was not a given. Next year,
5th grade.
5th grade. So here are our scores for Wynn School, our 3rd grade ELA scores. Our percentage of students who met or exceeded was 22%. State average was 35%. And we did go through and look at 75% of the schools gave the test online, 25% were paper tests, and today we got some figures on the difference in the percentages of the kids that took test online and ones that did paper. It shows about a 3%, 3 to 4% difference on some of those that did paper, usually did a little better. There were a couple of tests where it was kind of reversed, but it was still pretty close to that. So our 3rd grade ELA was at 22, 3rd grade math at 22, 4th grade ELA at 32. And as you can see, our 4th grade math, 15. All of these were below the state average. 5th grade, 27, and 5th grade math at 13. Some of the things that we looked at when we went back and got these scores was to go and look at comparable districts to District 95. We were looking through some of the districts with different demographics, different resources, had scores way above the state average. And I think you had in your packet the chart that Jeremy put together, pulling together a couple district scores that were comparable to 95s, the same size schools, same types of resources, same demographics. And our scores were very comparable to those, if not a little bit higher. So here are ELA state averages, and the way they are these scores of 650 is low. The scale runs from 650 to 850. 850 is high. A score of 750 is considered meets. So overall, on the 3rd grade ELA, the WINS average was 723. Then on breaking it down, 3rd grade reading and writing. For reading, the scale goes from 10 to 90. I don't know where they picked the numbers from. Our third grade reading was 39 with a state average of 43. Third grade writing, the scale goes from 10 to 60. So our third grade writing was 28, and then the state average of 31. And then you can go through and look at the scores. Our scores were all running, our average was running just below that meets. And if we go back and look, we had quite a few students that fell in that category 3 of approaching. So they just almost made it there. So I thought that was kind of encouraging to look back at that. Our math state averages, as you can see, remembering the 650 to 850 with 750 as a meet. After we looked over these and went back and thought about the PARCC questions and the tests that were on those, Carol has worked with all of our grade level teams, looking at our curriculum. Some of the things that we've needed to do are reorder how the chapters, maybe in math, were presented. There were some things that our students hadn't gotten to yet when they were tested in March. So we've made sure to go back, since we know that's an emphasis on the part, to go back and make sure that we reorder that chapter so they're introduced to that. And then we have WINS demographics here. Last year, 287 students, 23% of our students were special ed students. We have 95% attendance. And one of our most telling statistics here was our district average is about in the 60s of low-income students. At WINS last year, our low-income average was 73%. So we know we have some students and some families with some limited resources that we really need to try to support them there at school. So we've been kind of working on that, making sure that we have those interventions and resources available for those students and those families to help their students at home. Somebody have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
The special education, is that considered part of the 287?
Yes,
And did that 23% take the test?
most of those. We had, I think it was 1.5% that don't take that take it's called dynamic learning maps. And those would be our students that have severe cognitive disabilities.
Okay.
Some do get accommodations.
Yes. Our- they
Sometimes
might
there's
get
accommodations, but not a lot.
And there's a lot, and with it being online, so some of our students that are taking those math tests, reading story problems, we might have some students with reading disabilities, that they would be able, we could program that student's test so it read to them through the headphones. So really what they had to do was just solve the math problem instead of, trying to read it.
Is the rearranging of the thing because we're not moving as fast as PARCC wants us to move, or because PARCC doesn't follow their protocol?
I think a lot of it was, since it was a new test, there were some things that you never know until you take that test, where the emphasis is going to lie. So we might have hit some of those things, but really hadn't gotten to go into depth. So, fourth grade, how far did they get in fractions before they went on? And, they might have put more emphasis on that maybe than geometry. So you want to make sure, almost every math book you go to, they always put geometry at the end. Every one of them, geometry is the last chapter, and you're always trying to hurry to get through that. Well, if that's something that's emphasized on the test, we have to make sure we get that in before March instead of in May. So it's just going back and looking through those. Another thing we were doing was really going back and looking at the writing and what the kids were able to do and what was asked of them to do on PARCC. And one of the things the teachers brought up, especially with the younger students, when they had to go and write something on the test, they'd see this little box where they could go up and they could start typing and writing. Of course, for third graders, that was a little more difficult just because of the typing skills. Some of the students assumed they could only fill the box, not realizing, even though we kind of encouraged them, that it would expand as they went on. So they would stop when they filled the box. So now we're really kind of working on giving them more experience in the computer lab with keyboarding skills and a lot more writing skills, a lot more practice with the kind of things that they're, now that we know what kind of things they're going to be asked to do on the test.
Don't you have a new math series? Is it
Yes.
the first year and you think that's?
Last year was the first year we had a new math series. And I think in some areas that kind of helped us. They had a little more experience with having to explain how they got the answer. And in some areas, since we had switched the math series, we're having to find other things to supplement that, you know, that one didn't hit quite as hard.
But the new math series aligns with the,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Parsons?
So at Mayo, we gave the PARCC to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and there's two subjects we're testing, that's ELA and it's math. And ELA is reading and writing, and one of the big things I just think is really important to understand is that my reading comprehension is now assessed through my writing. So if I cannot write coherently or effectively, that is going to hurt my reading score in part, if that makes sense. So it's really important that we're really pushing this writing with our kids. And so that's why we've really integrated that really hard into our content areas. Like, so even Nick Sanders, 7th grade computers is teaching writing in his class. Because we really need kids to be effective in that communication skill. So the big thing is we did not give science this year because it was not part a portion of PARCC. We are expected to give it sometime in 2016, like this school year. Although they don't know who's doing it, they don't have it out for bid yet, the state doesn't have money for it, but we're supposed to do it because it's part of the No Child Left Behind waiver that we're still technically under for this school year. So we're all sitting on the edge of our seats to prepare for that test. So we're getting ready. So when you look at Mayo, we have them grouped 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. You can see Mayo, where we have our meets and exceeds and our state averages. Overall, when you go on the state report card, Mayo had 36.4% of our students meet or exceed. 36.4. The state average is 33. So we were 3.4% better. I wish it was at 0.5 so I could round it up one more, but I'm very proud of that. And so we technically are above state average. Now when you start breaking it out by subject area and grade level, you can see like 6th grade ELA, Mayo's 46, the state's 35. You can see 6th grade math, 34, the state's 27. 7th grade ELA, 53, and the state average was 40. 7th grade math, 21, the state was 28, so we were 7% below. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk more about that here in a second. In 8th grade ELA, we were at 32, the state was at 40. And in 8th grade math, we were at 31, and the state average was 32, so we're only a point off. So I'm going to talk about some of these. So I'm going to go to my 7th grade math, because this one kind of boggles my mind. So you can see on my 7th grade math, on my meets and exceeds, 21% of my kids met or exceeded, and the state average was 28. But if you look at the raw score, and I get real into this, you can see Mayo's average was 735. And the state average was 733, so I'm actually 2 points higher. So you say, how is that possible? My high kids scored really high, and my kids didn't quite hit meets, but they were right on that border of that approach, and you could have bumped up. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I'm okay. The other thing about my 7th grade math is my 7th grade math teacher was on maternity leave the entire first semester and came back for only about 2 months before my kids tested. So I feel still pretty good about that. So, if you look at my state averages, again, you can look, 6th grade ELA, we're 746, the state average is 738. Sixth grade reading, we're 47, the state's 45. Sixth grade writing, 34, the state's 31. Seventh grade ELA, 746, the state average is 739. Now our eighth grade ELA was another one that was down, and if you look at our eighth grade ELA, we were down by just 1 point, 739, and the state average was 740. And then also on our eighth grade reading, now the reading and writing, they have them broken out. Our eighth grade reading is down by 1 point, but our eighth grade writing is up by 1 point, which makes me feel really good because writing is really hard to get our kids to score well on. Then back to the math state averages, you can see again, if you go back to my eighth grade math, I'm flipping around so much, let's see. If you go back to my eighth grade math, we were 1% below on our meets and exceeds. But I'm gonna go back to my math, eighth grade math, we're 2 points ahead of the state average. So it's just kind of an interesting way to look at it. So what that means is we need to go back and look at individual student scores. And we need to see what was really the difference between why a kid was on that border of approaching and they didn't get the meets. What was it that we missed out on? So we want to bring all kids up, but we also need to be looking at what's the difference between those borders. And so sixth grade math above, seventh grade math above, eighth grade math above. When you look at our demographics, we had 282 students last year. 19% of them were special education. Not all of those special education students were tested. Some of those were dynamic learning maps. We had 64% low income, and I'm very proud of that attendance because I'm knocking on doors all the time, and we are 96%, and the state average is 92, so we're 4 ahead on the state average. And I know I can't get perfect attendance, but we're aiming to get more and more kids there. And one of the really proud things I am about attendance is last year I think we had over 20 kids with perfect attendance, and this year we're aiming for over 30. If I can get over 30 kids that have perfect attendance at the year, I want a helicopter flying over my school to see what's going on, because that's over 10% of my kids are having perfect attendance. So we're aiming for it, and we're recognizing them all the time and knocking on doors to make it happen. And so you can see those are our test scores and our demographics. Do you guys have any questions before we move on to the continuous improvement plan?
Can you explain to me approaching and,
Okay.
I mean, I don't understand,
So-
either you meet it or
yeah.
you don't.
So in the past, you always had 4 categories. So in the past, you had exceeds, you had meets, you had below, and you had academic warning. And so now the state went to 5 categories, and my interpretation, this is my interpretation, some people might disagree with me, they went to 5 categories to kind of make it feel a little bit better when these scores came out. So now they have a term called approaching. Approaching is basically, I did not meet, it's below. But they broke it up into categories so you could see more specifically what's going on. So approaching means I did not meet it. If you look at a state report that's out, the state actually used the term proficient. If you are meets or exceeds, you are proficient, is basically what they're saying based on those standards. And I'll tell you, I have several kids at my school where I know the Common Core standards are high. I know these test scores are low. But I went through some kids' reports, and I see kids who exceeds in all areas, and I'm thinking, they exceeded on these Common Core standards on this test the first year. That's really impressive for our kids. Not all did. So it's just something.
But you did have kids that exceeded in the school.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think I've heard reports that there were schools that didn't have anybody that exceeded.
Yeah, and you can go on IllinoisReportCard.com. We lump our meets and exceeds together on purpose because that's considered proficient. But you can go online. I have my, I don't know if I do have my exceeds here separated out.
No,
But I can tell you, I can
question.
guarantee there's an exceed in every category, in every grade level, every subject area. There's kids who are exceeding. So, are there any other questions about the PARCC scores? Thank you. Carol, it's going to talk about the continuous improvement. It's that big pack of papers they have.
Well, since we're asking you to approve the improvement plan, I've done best to highlight some of the main components of it, so that's what I'm going to do in this slide here. I just want to say too, if students are getting a 4 or 5 or a meets or exceeds on the PARCC, that according to PARCC, they say they are on the right track for college and career readiness. So an interpretation of the score as well. Okay, so getting on to our improvements that we're continually making. It's always a process, we never stop, we've got to keep going with it. The first three subjects up there, writing, reading, mathematics, of course, those are all the ones that are tested on PARCC. So those will always be a part of our improvement plan. You know, they need to be because we need to keep making improvements forward on that. So starting with the writing, one of the things we've just recently done, we've purchased a writing program called Write Steps, and right now that's being implemented in grades 3 through 6. And that is a online program that's completely aligned to the state standards. And the nice thing about this writing program is that it gives the teacher the script, the materials, the activities, the rubrics, everything for the teacher to implement the writing lessons. And I know, and Cindy, maybe you can verify this, a lot of the elementary teachers especially felt a little bit uncomfortable teaching writing because they had to come up with everything themselves. There was just really no kind of program out there. And this program takes that away from them so they can concentrate more on the lesson presentation and the students' writing and just trying to make that better, not so much on the actual development, since that is already there for them. So our goal then is, so we got that 3 through 6. They just don't offer at the 7th and 8th grade level. But Memorial will be piloting a unit next semester, and then after they've done that, then we'll meet and we'll talk about it. And at that time, we'll discuss, instead of just making Write Steps 3 through 6, possibly K through 6, so we have one continuous writing program. Moving on to reading. A couple years ago, we made quite a few changes in our reading curriculum to be better aligned to the state standards. And so we've got our 50-50 informational text versus our literary text. We've got teachers doing close reads, which means exposing our students to challenging text, which is what they're expected to do on PARCC. We've even aligned our unit tests to resemble PARCC. Teachers have spent a lot of time doing that. And you can see it's paying off, especially you can see, well, Toby, you're to be congratulated. You have, again, how many % of your students?
It wasn't just me though, it was the whole, I mean, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Because we're all writing, we're all reading, we're
Right.
all close reading, but yeah, they did well.
They certainly did. And yeah, it's just a process of everybody, with getting the science and social studies teachers on board with teaching reading and writing, which and they're doing close reads and they're doing writing in their curriculum too. So, and we're continuing to fine-tune that. Mathematics, this is our second year with the new math series, My Math by McGraw-Hill. And so the teachers are feeling more comfortable about teaching it now since they taught it once through, and now the second time through, they're seeing the students are adjusting a lot better to the lessons. They're feeling more comfortable teaching it. So, hopefully we'll do better on the math this time. We still know we need to make some, corrections in the program, which we're working on. Especially we need to add more challenging problems to our instruction. Just this past week, I took a group of teachers to Normal, and they participated. It's called Math Talks, in which the teacher presents a problem and many different ways to solve it. So the students then present all their solutions, and the teacher just records them, and then afterwards they have a discussion of the solutions and what do you think about this one, and so we're giving students practice-centered reasoning and critiquing other problems on there. So I thought it was very beneficial. Allison, you went, and have you done a math talk yet?
We did it yesterday.
How'd it go?
We're gonna have to do it again. It was definitely the first one.
Okay, and they told us that would happen, but it's something that we hope to implement now in all our math programs because we can really see the benefit of doing that. I just want to say too that whenever we implement something new, I try to get into the classrooms and observe. So, and that's fortunate. I'm really excited about always getting in classrooms and observing. So I've observed in all K through 8 reading classrooms. Mathematics, I did last year, was in all through K through 8 mathematics classrooms. And this year I'm going around observing in the writing at 3 through 5 at Wentz, and I've already been at Mayo. And so of course, after I observe, then I have discussions with the teachers on what we can do to continually move forward in that area. The next generation science standards, we're just getting started with those. And teachers now, we've met with them and they have all the major components down. They know what that means when we talk about next generation science standards, when we say cross-cutting concepts and practices, they know what to expect. And we had an in-service in which a teacher presented different investigations and experiments the teachers could do in their classroom, and they're all excited about doing that. And our goal is to get more of those hands-on activities and good questioning going on from the teachers. And also to have a STEM project, like even at the elementary level, to have a STEM project for first semester and one for second semester. So that's the direction we're going in science. We've talked a little bit about the technology, and you referred to that as being, especially with the keyboard. That is a big issue at the elementary grade level. So we have purchased, and at Wentz they're doing the Type to Learn keyboarding program throughout the entire year at the 3rd through 5th grade level. And Mayo is doing an online program for 6th, 7th, and 8th. But this is the first year we've got Memorial doing the keyboarding program. So you might say, even kindergartners? Yeah, there are things they can do on the computer and the keyboarding. So since we've got Memorial now on board for K through 2, we hope to see improvements then by the time they get to Wentz, since they've been practicing the keyboarding skills for that long. Hopefully it'll be easier for those students to be able to write their essays on the computer. When it came time to some of the other things that they have to do in computerized tests, like drag and drop, use math tools, our students didn't have any problem with that. They went through that really easily. But we found the keyboarding was a major issue. Any questions for me on the improvement plan?
I've got one question.
Yeah.
What kind of a STEM project would be a good example of a student would have in elementary?
In an elementary classroom, well, I can say last year, the 3rd grade, I observed that, the 3rd grade teachers had, they call it the egg drop. And so they had to come up with a way to make sure they were going to drop an egg from rather high, actually a rooftop. Yeah, at the school. And they had to come up with a way to make sure that the egg didn't break. And of course, the teacher prepares them for this by teaching the lessons and the concepts, you know, on how to prevent that from happening. And so they had that work out real well. So that's just one example I can give you. I can tell you, Chris does at her level, 6th grade level, you've done this, making the sled.
We've done sleds, and we took that project to the state capitol last year to present it there, so.
There's all
It's
sorts of
tough,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
tough for them.
Any other questions? Okay, and our last slide then, Jeremy's going to talk on the accountability model.
So they did come out, the state came out with the new accountability model. So this is something that will be phased in over the next couple of years. And so you'll see that there's 2 different parts. They call it the differentiated accountability model. You'll also hear it called the balanced accountability model. So in the past, it was all test scores. Under No Child Left Behind, you either made AYP or you did not make AYP. And now what they have is they have this differentiated accountability model where component 1 is worth 30% and district practice is worth 70%. And then they break that up. So under student performance, you still do have test scores weighing in there where you have achievement status, achievement growth. So what's the growth that you've got? You also have annual measurable objectives. And I believe that's in regards to the subgroups, closing the gaps. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes.
Yes. So your first one is how well did you do on the test. The second one is how well did you come up from the year prior. And your third one is how well are you closing the gaps. So if you have a special education population, which would be a subgroup for us, or also students who are low income, we need to be closing that gap up. So those are the 3 student performance pieces, 10% apiece is how they're going to be evaluating schools. On the district practice, we have 70%. So you can see this is more heavily weighted, which is really different for us because we're very used to it being test scores only. And so now on the 70%, what you see is 10% is compliance, which is a little different. The ROE comes in here and does compliance checks on us. So they're saying, how compliant are you with the different requirements that fall upon schools? It's kind of an interesting piece. 30% is best practices. So that would be where they actually come into your schools and they actually are going through and evaluating you as independent teams. They're not quite sure how they're going to do that, but the suggestion is you would have teams made up for maybe like a region where they're trained through some organization, and then they come through and evaluate. And then also you have your contextual evidence, which is a lot like your best practices, but in my mind it's kind of like your school improvement plan, where you're going through and collecting information, talking about what's going on within your school. So one of the things we're working on is, as administrators, is thinking, okay, how do we want to make sure our students are achieving. We want to make sure we're growing, that we're closing those gaps. We've always wanted to be compliant. Now we're really looking at what are some of those best practices, and are we having those conversations, and how are we documenting those? So it's kind of just a new thing for us, and we're not quite sure. This is going to be phased in over the next 3 years. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, the board does always approve then the school improvement plan for the district, and they just reviewed that with you. So at this time, I would ask that the board approve the district school improvement plan.
So moved.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Would each member please respond to the motion to approve the school improvement? Ison.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Nopel.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
Idle is yes.
Okay, the next item is our levy. The levy did not change from when we originally presented it last month. So at this time, I would ask the board we did not go over to 5%. So we did not need to hold a truth and taxation hearing. So I'd ask the board to approve the levy for the 16-17 school year.
So maybe.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the certificate of tax levy. Any discussion? I noticed that it was $2,738,000 last year, but it had $522,638 in debt. We didn't ask for any debt reduction.
It's 2.4 this year for the levy. And our EAD stayed pretty stable this year. They didn't predict it going up. So we calculated everything at the maximum level that we could ask, and that's what we came up with.
What was the EAV that was based on 69 something?
Yeah, and we've been up to, I believe, 72, not too many years ago. But we dropped about $1 million.
73.
Yeah. So,
5 years ago.
from what Dina said to me, Hassler, that she does feel we'll start seeing it's leveling out. We should, well, hopefully we'll see some increases, and maybe hoping with potential new housing and things with the school and companies coming in that, but, yeah, because we're seeing our enrollments kind of going up, which is a good thing. If we can hold on to that. Most of the districts around us have declining enrollment, which hurts your state aid, but, she said that she thought we wouldn't see a lot this year, probably be pretty stable, but we might start seeing some increases in our EAD.
Any other discussion? Would you please respond to the motion? Ison.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Nopel.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
Idle is yes.
Okay, we have a retirement request from Wentz School. Kathy Huttercroft, who's the head cook at Wentz School, effective December 31st, is requesting to retire. Ask the board approve that request.
It's been seconded, or moved and seconded to approve the retirement request from the Wentz cook. Any discussion? Ison.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey. Nopel.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
Idle is yes.
And we had a resignation from a Mayo cheer sponsor, Casey Hollingsworth. We received a resignation from her and asked the board to approve the resignation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resignation of the mayor chair sponsor. Any discussion? Isom,
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Bailey, Nopel,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Idle, yes.
Now we'll employ a Wentz cook and a cheer sponsor. You have a recommendation from Darla Davidson, our food service director, to fill the cook vacancy at Wentz. She's recommended Mary Lou Irwin be moved to the head cook, Mary Lou's been with us a while, and to employ Sharon Abbott as the assistant cook. I'd ask the board to approve this request.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the employment of two people for the fill the Wentz positions. Any discussion? Is Mary Lou the assistant being moved up?
Yes,
Yeah, and
she's
so
moving
Sharon's taking her.
Yes, because
Okay.
Kathy was the head cook, correct.
Okay. All right. Isom,
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Bailey. Yes. Nopel,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Idle, yes.
Okay, I have a recommendation for Mr. Larson to employ Michelle Huffington to serve as the cheer sponsor at Mayo School for the 16-17 school year. I ask the board to approve that request.
So moved.
Well done.
Enthusiastic.
It's good to see her coming back to that position.
Yeah.
It's been enthusiastically moved. We employ Michelle Huffington as the cheer sponsor at Mayo Middle School. Any discussion? Isom,
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Bailey. Yes. Nopel,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Idle, yes.
Pleased to say we have several donations to approve. We received $100 to Memorial School from the First United Methodist Church Women's Group. They plan to use this to purchase clothing for needy children, and if you don't mind, I'll go into the next donation as well. The next would be donations to Mayo School for their golf program, and they've received donations, and I have a list of those that I can read to you. To date, the total, he said they've received is $3,500 in donations for this program. That covers the golf programs such as the course, the lessons, the uniforms, and it's all been self-funded. This has been something that people have really been kind and made donations. Would you like for me to read you the individual donations?
Unless you.
Yeah, I'll give you a list of them, but,
We got a list of them.
yeah, so there was, sometimes people, like to say it when they're in the paper, but I'll be glad to give them to you, Nancy. So I'd ask that the board approve the donation from the First United Methodist Church to Memorial School and the other kind of donations to the Mayo Golf Program.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept specific donations to each program. Any discussion?
How many students are active in the golf? Do you know?
Last year, last year, I was called on Friday, and they had to have their money in by like Monday. So we
Yeah,
only-
I remember.
So we only had 8 kids. We're expecting we're gonna have more, who are gonna participate in the future. We do plan on that.
Is this restricted to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? Or is that?
One of the conversations that we actually wanted to bring to the board in the future, and it's something Amy and I have talked about, is I would like to propose we include 5th grade. I know my parents, because I've been meeting with these parents every single month, and we would really like to include 5th grade in on this. And there's 2 parts to that. Number one, we think that the earlier they can start, the better they're gonna get with golf, because I think it's just something kids aren't accustomed to. It's not something you're going out and doing all the time unless it's something that's in the family. The second part to that is Amy is technically, Wentz is an IESA school, we're an IESA school, so it's not gonna cost the district any money, we promise. And so what's gonna happen is she has 10 slots that she can send kids to sectionals, we have 10 slots we can send kids to sectionals, so we can send more. They'd be under Wentz's name and their purple polos going out there, and we'll be proud, and we'll have our red kids out there, and it's something that we'll be able to run together. And I think it's a really good thing, and my parents are really eager about it, but I want to take one step at a time. But if you guys are good with that, I'd be more than glad to start working with my parents on that.
Yeah, I think that's
Yes.
Do you have a coach?
So we don't plan on necessarily having a coach since this is an independent activity. What we're planning on is lessons. And I don't want anyone to think I'm playing word games on that, but I think a coach is much different than someone who's just going off and giving lessons. And I really do think there's a different approach on it. So we have someone who we have planned to give lessons May, June, July, August, and maybe the first part of September, but it depends on when sectionals come out. And they'll be giving them twice a week for 2 hours a week is what we have planned. The reason why, and I've told my parents, there's a difference between coach, because the reason why is girls, and this is starting to get technical, the girls golf sectionals and boys golf sectionals are on the same day every single year. Well, you can only have one golf coach listed in IESA. So who's that guy gonna go? Is he gonna go with the girls, or is he gonna go with the boys? You see what I'm saying? And then it just becomes the whole issue of how are they interacting with the school. So this is something where I have several very active parents who are officers of this association where, you know, they're leading this and they know what they want. And I kind of want us to kind of, as we're forming this new creation, to come together and say, what do we want this to shape and look like? And that's where Mick and I have been meeting with them every week. And right now, Mick and I kind of want to lead it with these parents and just, right now, it's just golf lessons. And I know that sounds like a word game. I promise you it's not. Just because we're sending our kids there and they don't have to go, it's an independent activity because kids might be in baseball or softball or doing other things. Whereas in another sport, if you don't show up, you're penalized and you can get dropped from the sport. And it's just a really different thing that we're trying to form.
I assume nobody will be dropped from the program if you have 50 kids signed up.
Yeah.
That's
Well, the problem is too, is there's no junior highs that have a golf competition south of I-80. So unless we wanna travel to the suburbs to play
The
a
North
golf
Shore of
match.
Chicago.
But we've secured a tournament in the Springfield area where the parents are gonna haul their kids to play in a tournament that's junior high only in Springfield, that the Springfield schools have, which is the only one down the whole state of Illinois. We've talked about having our own, that's something we're looking for in the future.
And then the other thing is there's the Eastern Illinois Junior Golf Conference that goes throughout the entire summer. They have 10 different meets for the kids throughout the summer. And then, so we are really strongly encouraging our kids. That's another thing is why this is so, it's important for me to keep stressing it's independent, because we're not busing these kids. Their parents are driving them. This is all independent. We have parents who are fundraising for lessons, fundraising for uniforms, fundraising to have access to a course. And so they're fundraising for access to these different opportunities for those kids, rather than the district coming in and saying, we're providing transportation, providing a coach, you know, and because I want to make sure the parents really understand that as we move forward.
Are you, in the tournaments, are you limited to the number of entrants that you
No,
can
we can put
allow?
as many
We
as we
won't turn
want.
anybody away.
And see, one of the things, yeah, we can put as many kids in as we want.
Something like that.
And for that Eastern Illinois Junior Golf Conference, they'll take as many as they can get. And because the kids are actually entering in as individuals, each kid as they enter is paying their own entry fee into that. So, I'm trying to think of what else. And then it's kind of neat because at the end of the series of 10, they have like a little like tournament for like the kids who had the best scores. They go in, and so it's almost like your own little season. So.
That sounds good.
I've lost my place. Have we voted on this?
No, are we voting?
I don't think we have, but I.
Oh, for all the donations, have you voted?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm confused.
You want the money, right?
Got the motion, no vote.
Okay, no vote yet.
And
So
we've
now
had
you got
a
to vote.
bunch discussion, so Isa,
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey. Noteful.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
Item. Forgetful.
And you guys are good with us keep moving with this golf?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Move it down to everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, because he was thinking he's gonna have to go into another overproduction on that, so. Next, we had one fundraising request from Gus Johnson, the male band director. He's asking to hold one in February, who use the money towards repairs and refurbishing of instruments. I'd ask the board to approve the fundraising request of Gus Johnson.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the fundraising request from Gus Johnson. Any discussion? Does this conflict with Booster Club activities, or is this part of the Booster Club activities, or?
This is separate from the Booster Club activities, and there's no conflicts where, the Booster Club is not selling anything during that time that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Usually almost always somebody
In
sells
fact,
something.
Nick and I were just asking them, we were coming up with more ideas for them to make money, and they said we're good for a while. So,
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the fundraising request from Gus Johnson, Isaac,
Yes.
Sanchez.
yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Bailey. Notful.
Yes.
Mathis.
Yes.
Items, yes.
Okay, next, it's time for our yearly renewal. We use insurance audit and inspection to help us with our general liability and major liability board insurance, and they are a consulting group that we've used. It's time to renew their fee for $2,800. I'd ask that the board renew with insurance audit and inspection.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the insurance audit inspection for our risk management consulting services. Any discussion? Do they just advise us on the liability side of it, or is this?
They really help make the proposals for us, and if they think it's time for us to bid our insurance, or because they'll see a huge increase in something, they have not recommended that in a few years, because we've really dropped our work comp and some of those others, so we've done pretty well with their consulting.
Okay. There's a motion to approve the services of insurance audit inspection for our risk management consulting services for 2016, 2017. Isaac?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Tuttle?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Notful?
Yes.
Mathis?
Yes.
Items, yes.
Okay, the next item is the resolution that is in your pack, or in the board agenda for the school facilities 1% tax. I'm going to make a few statements. I've had some contacts from a couple of people that have asked me to say some things, but we met with county superintendents and board presidents just to review this. And I think we've been talking about this in our meetings for at least a couple of months. The idea of this tax, we wanted to get more information, talk about more what you could use the tax for and how to go about all of this. There's been a little confusion as to when everybody was going to do their resolution and when they went to the ballot and when to vote on it, from either spring or November or whatever. So we did talk a lot about, we would have liked to have had, and Steve can go on about this a little bit more because he was at that meeting. It was kind of twofold. I think everyone's in agreement that this is a great thing for schools, or to receive this money for your capital projects through a tax this way. What we would have liked to have seen was for every district in the county, since it is a county-wide tax, it will go to all the districts, to have been on the same page. That being said, I've been told first, some districts were going to think about it and they decided not to. Then other districts thought they would call and told me they might table it because maybe we would wait for the November election. Since that time, Kansas had already said they probably would not do it because they made other obligations. They told their taxpayers for the next 3 years they would not. And we understood that, and I think everybody thought that was a good move on their part. Since then, however, after talking to the Crispin superintendent, they did put it on their agenda and they did vote for it, and it did pass, and as did Shiloh. So tonight we're here to talk about it, and Steve, you may have some other things to add about District 95 passing the resolution. If we do, it will indeed be enough to put it on the ballot, because you have to have over 51% of the population.
I would be interested in hearing other people's
Okay.
opinions.
And then I've got one community member that
Would you like
emailed
to
me.
read that first, or you want to read that
Yeah,
last?
it's fine. Howard Tyler had sent me an email today asking me to read. He'd encouraged the board to approve the 1% sales tax for schools on the next available ballot. Property owners already carry a huge tax burden to support the schools, and any relief they can get from raising their taxes is needed. Our property tax burden is 3 times the neighboring Indiana. The taxes needed operating in the taxing district needs divided fairly and involving others through sales tax. It spreads the burden. Please consider the spring ballot. I'm gonna have to say as well, I received one call, which is not be surprising, that Mr. Kraft called, said he would like to have been here this evening, with the Illinois Leaks, or I guess that's their name. And just simply, it simply said, made a comment, please ask your board to, and he told me to quote this, stay out of my pockets, meaning no more taxes. But he did go on to say that, and we knew that these groups would probably oppose, and this was not surprising. He did go on to say something interesting, however, that that in his experience with these taxes, that a lot of districts will pass them, and then the bond people come hovering around from these First Mid-State and all of those, and they try to encourage boards to borrow money against the revenue that they're going to receive, and that has happened many times. And he said, you know, I think if a board could tell us or put in writing or something, they would not do that. They wait until the money was in the bank before they decided to do a certain project, that it would not be as controversial. So I am going to share that, because some of the bad taste that maybe has been out there is maybe people didn't feel like it was used the way they, you know, to alleviate their burden.
That's always a possibility.
Right.
But it's, and I said I'd let everybody else talk, but let me respond to Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
if you don't mind. There are pretty specific rules for how this money is gonna be spent. And you can't put it in the education fund, you can put it in O&M if you've got a roof that needs repaired, and if you have to build a new school or repairs to your school. Or, the big one is, you can use it to reduce your long-term debt. And let me say about our long-term debt, I know you're all aware of the fact that we can only have a referendum, or we can only borrow 13.8% of our EAV, which is right at 9.6 million. That's pretty close. That's just rounding it off. Last year we were at 9.3, so we had about a $300,000. If we had to go borrow money on a referendum, that's all we could ask for. This year we're excuse me. I think you gave me something. We're about $900,000 less than that, because we paid QZAB off last year. So we're in a better situation for our bonds. But let me add to that, our principal and interest for 2016 is $517,000. $534,000 for two, $549,000, $559,000, $588,000. Then in 2021, it jumps up to $635,000. The next 5 years, it jumps up to $718,000. The next 2 years, it jumps up to $813,000. This is a lot of money that has to come out of taxpayers right now. And the $400,000 a year could go a long way to paying off this long-term debt. So down the road, if we did get into a situation where we had that issue of referendum and we had to borrow money for whatever reason, I'm not saying we are going to, we would have that room between our 13.8% and where our long-term debt is now. So, and I'm just throwing this out for your all's consideration. This would be an excellent place to put this money in terms of retiring our debt. We still have some debt carried over from Carolyn Wentz and Memorial School to in terms of about 1.1 million.
It's not, all that debt's not the high school.
Yeah, that's, 6 million of it's high school.
Right.
And what you may or may not know is that we do not pay any principal against that $6 million debt till the year 2022. We are only paying interest up to that point, because that's what we can afford. But if we can throw a little bit of money toward that principal, then we can retire that debt a lot faster and put ourselves in better financial shape. Now, don't take this the wrong way, because we're not in bad financial shape because we have fund balances. But we're in a deficit situation, and we knew that going in, and as they keep going down, we're gonna have less and less of our safety net. So this would help us retire this debt and possibly restructure it so that the payments are more, and then we can retire it faster and pay less interest. So that's an answer to Mr. Kraft's, what are you gonna do with your money, type thing. And I appreciate him, not wanting us to get in his pocket. I don't want mine either, but I went, personally got my taxes from to know what I paid in taxes over the last 4 years and how much they went up. And just to make a long story short, I would have to spend a considerable amount of money at 1% to cover that increase. So I'll shut up now and open up the floor to anybody who has any ideas, yay, nay, questions. We'll try to answer. We went to a presentation in Chicago of another school district that had done this successfully. And we have some ideas on how to approach it. And it's not like we're just starting out. I've talked to some people in town who are in favor of it that will probably help us or identify people that can help us. One of the other things that we can't do is we can't go promote it. If people ask you questions, you can answer the facts, but you can't say go vote yes on this referendum. That's just what the law says. And I'm sure Connie will get some specific instructions from our legal counsel as to how you can answer questions and what you can do.
You can give, we've gone through several referendums, and many of you on the board have, and it's no different. You can give facts, you can have a brochure with facts, and the facts would be whatever the board decided to do with this revenue. So if you're saying we're gonna pay an extra bond payment.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
I'm just
but
suggesting
you
there's something we
cannot
could do.
say, you cannot encourage them to vote one way or the other.
Yeah.
Other groups can do that. There could be community groups that can use our facts because they'll need to know what we plan as a school to use the money for when if and when it's received. But then they have to go out and do the more, like, yes to BCHS groups is what we did. We sat on those groups and we were there and we provided them with the data because that's where they're gonna ask, what would you use it for? And that's what the board would have to be very, just very clear on. And
specifically, the people that had the successful referendum said that people were more interested in what they were going to use their money for than where the money was coming from.
yeah,
And,
they didn't really care how much they were getting. It was more, do you have a plan? Do you know what you're going to do with this money? And other than just saying, yeah, we need money. You know, all districts could use the money. But
Would you plan to abate taxes at some point?
I didn't say that.
I know, I'm just asking.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I mean, can you predict the future for the state?
No,
given the money? I mean,
That's one of the questions that comes up.
Then I can't, I would say I don't make any promises that I can't keep. It's, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but, this is maybe not as much of a tax abatement situation as it is, let's don't raise it, let's don't get Mr. Kraft's pocket situation. And I don't know that for sure, because, you know, the state still is, we still guess every time we, that's what I'm guessing on where we are.
Right.
And you should usually get it.
because, well, the state has approved a budget for education, which we were fortunate that they did do that, but like you said, Nancy, do we know? We're always late on our categoricals. That's nothing new, but do we know if they'll give us the last two payments? I don't know.
Is that the last two payments, is that the last 2 months or the last 2
Well,
payments?
last two they say we'll miss 2 payments, not 2 months,
We
but
get 2 a month.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those are just, but this tax in particular it's in a category of its own though. It is just in its own budget, in its own line item. The only thing, you know, that people would say, you know, some people just don't want taxes raised. So that's where they're.
That which brings up another thing. We would have to have a 10th fund balance. This has to go into a separate
has to
fund.
go in a
It can't go
separate
into
fund.
any other fund. So instead of having 9 funds right now, we would have 10 funds.
Right.
With I'm sorry I'm talking too much.
No, that's
I mean,
exactly right.
everybody- I've got more information if you want it, if you'd like to ask questions, if you'd like to make a comment, go ahead, and I will try to.
Controversy comes with these groups, they say you can't tie a new board to what this board says, which is true. You can't, but I said, well, people can use that for a campaign, then option, I guess. They're just worried that you'll obligate to a project and then it will go over and you do have to sell bonds or get alternate bonds or something. But that's gonna happen, you know, those questions will be asked, but, you know, like I said, we've got ideas of where we would
We don't
spend
have the
it.
capability to
No.
do. We're not. in a
Just like we
position
don't know
to-
if a board would abate them, or whatever was decided, or if a roof falls in, or something. That way you're gonna have to use some money for that, so.
Do you have a number, about 400,000?
Yeah, about over 400,
480 is what, that was the
450,
last.
480
number.
probably.
There,
We had a chart
I
for
can
the
give you a
whole-
handout, and it has all that in there.
Okay,
And it's pretty self-explanatory.
okay, I'll get it from you.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, I just want to clarify, because Steve had asked me before, and I saw a message from him, because there was an article, I think, from the Prairie Press that Kansas said, I had said, you know, we weren't gonna put it on the agenda, that's different than, or I don't know if you did. But what was said was, there was two things said in the meeting, and one was, yes, everybody felt they should have it on their agenda and as a resolution. But the second thing we said was, we would like to have a unified front, we thought it was very important. You can look at that two different ways. You know, when Crestwood decided this wasn't the time, they thought maybe the November, that caused me then to poll the board and see, do we think this is a time? But Shiloh had said at that time, they may table it. Chrisman said, they may, so there's my response to you, because I'm being told by them, I'm talking to my board, well, if you don't have anybody unified, it's not gonna work, even though 95 could basically do it on their own, or pretty close. 'Cause we have the
ROE
most
told me, ROE told me
Yeah, we-
one.
One other
One
district than
beside
us, yes, because we
Take
have the
51%
population.
of the student
Yes.
population. of the
And they all knew they had to have us in it, but, because none of the other districts could have done it alone.
As a side note of that, everybody being on the same page
Right.
and going in the same direction, Douglas County passed this same tax without Tuscola's support, and that's the biggest thing in Douglas County. And
Yeah, I'm just
you can
saying that
imagine
that
how
was
much
mentioned
comes
at that
through there at
meeting.
mall that's outside money, and that this is money coming from Indiana, it's money
Yeah.
coming from
Yeah.
Clark County.
Can I make a, just with my experience being in retail in the Paris area for the past 15 years and with the different companies I've worked with, I will let you know, the city of Paris gets a lot of business from the Indiana area. We get from West Terre Haute, we get from Clinton. Also, north of us, you know, Georgetown, Danville. I'm seeing, you know, with all the businesses I've worked with, I've seen, you know, in the past, all these other areas coming to Paris to shop. So, I mean, this 1% is really gonna help us in the long run, in my opinion, on the part with, you know, it's really not just coming straight out of our community, that 1%. We're gonna be bringing, the sales that are being used from the communities from around us. So I just wanna, from my experience.
Anybody else have anything to say?
Are we all in agreement that it's a good tax? I think we have two
I'm in
issues.
agreement.
I think there's two issues. Is it a good tax? The second issue is timing. You can't decide the second issue until you decide the first issue.
How would you like to decide the first issue?
I don't know.
Would you like to get everybody's opinion?
Yeah, I think we did.
I think that's a good idea, if everybody's willing to give their opinion. Tom has suggested that we break this down into two sections. Number one, is it a good tax? So let's address that first. And you can answer yes, you can answer no, you can make a statement, you can do whatever you like to do, but, and we value everybody's opinion and everybody's thoughts, because it's sometimes maybe we haven't thought of something either. And I will go according to the voting, which is probably the fairest way to do it. Mrs. Olson?
I got some theory of it. But as far as timing, are we answering that now as well?
No, I'm just asking the first question.
Second one is, John Sanchez.
I've pretty much made my statement on it. I feel that, you know, it would help us. So yes.
Tom?
I'm philosophically opposed to tax increases. However, I didn't realize how much money comes in from the outside areas. So it's not a district tax.
Right.
So therefore, I'm vacillating. Right on the fence.
Plus, minus, or V?
Right on the fence.
Beal.
Well, I don't think any kind of tax is a good tax. I guess if you're gonna have one, this one here's not, but from a personal experience, and I'm against raising any taxes. I guess, this is about me. I got my health care insurance, I told Connie, raised $100 and some a month, just starting in January. Now, my social security thing instead ain't gonna cover the raise on there. So me personally, I won't be against raising anything. I'm speaking just for myself, being on fixed income now and everything, but I'm just against any kind of tax at all at this point. And I think doing it in March, I'm not sure it'll have a
We're
good
not
chance.
talking about that yet.
Yeah.
Good or bad?
Oh,
We have two reasons.
Two questions.
We're gonna have another question.
you have to wait on that one, I
We're
guess.
gonna come back to that first. We got first, if nobody wants it, then doesn't make a difference when we put it on the ballot. So, are you a yes or a no?
Well, no.
I'm gonna write that down. Kevin?
I mean, I like the idea of it bringing in money from other outside, rather than just hamstringing the property owners around here. So, from that standpoint, I'd be yes.
Cindy?
I'm on the fence, but I think I'm leaning over to yes.
That's a plus L. I'm for this tax, and I'll tell you why I'm for it. I think it's a fairest tax that we can possibly ask our taxpayers to pay, number one. Number two, we're sooner or later gonna have to pay this debt off. And if we don't do it through this, then we're going right back to you taxpayers to get that money, because that's basically our two sources, because I don't think the state's gonna come through with it. So, I'm on the plus side, and we have 5 pluses, a no, and a vacillation. So, I would assume that
But that part's a yes.
majority rule in this situation, so can we assume that the board as a whole thinks this is a good tax? Is that a fair assessment? I'm asking.
Sure.
So-
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we've answered Tom's first question. The second question he proposed is, when would be the best time to put this particular question that we decided is a good question on the ballot? Now, I'm gonna reverse the order this time, since it's only fair. And it would be me going first, but I think I'll wait if you don't mind. Unless you force me to, I will. But Cindy, you have an opinion on when?
I do. I would prefer November, just because until a few years ago, I didn't vote in March in the primaries, because I wanted the best person. I didn't want to declare whether as a Democrat or Republican, and I know there's a lot of people that do that. So there's gonna be a lot of people that aren't gonna vote.
Okay.
So I would rather wait until November, plus I think we need to make sure that if we're gonna do a pamphlet, that it's,
We can't do
or
anything.
what, I know, but I'm just saying, the community needs to know, all the ducks have to be in a row. And I just think we would get more feedback in November than in March.
Kevin?
I think it needs to, we need to look at the November timeframe. Main thing is we need to have all the schools out for the county, all that we can get on the same front.
Is there any guarantee Craft is gonna go in November? Beetle.
I'm gonna go either time, so.
Okay, Beetle didn't want it on there at all. We're back to you, Tom.
November.
And John,
November.
and Amy. Okay. I'm gonna tell you why I think it ought to be on in the spring. Number one, we have about 3,000 voting then, so you have to get less votes to pass it. And I think everybody wants it passed, the possibility. So if you have, and I got the numbers, it's about, average about 3,000 in the primary and about 8,000 to 9,000 in the, so you're looking at getting 1,500 one versus 4,000 and about 4,500 in one. I think if we wait till November, we'll do the same thing we're doing right now, and that's wait till the last minute and try to cram it in again. That's just my personal opinion. That these things have a tendency to get ignored until the time. Number 3 is we have 2 chances to get this thing passed if we put it on the spring ballot, because if it doesn't pass, then we can go ahead and put it on the November ballot. So the worst thing that can happen to us is it gets defeated in the spring, and we get another chance at it in November. If we do it in November and it gets defeated, then we gotta wait till next November if everybody's concerned about the general election. Number 4, your opposition has as much time as we do to marshal their forces. They don't have any more, they don't have any less. And it's a matter of how well you do it, not how long you do it. And I've talked to some people in town that are willing to look at providing people to get this started and get it going. And number 5 or 6 or wherever I was, if it gets defeated in the spring, we'll have a pretty good idea of how they're gonna come at us to try to defeat it. And then maybe we can counteract that with some other measures to make sure it gets on in November. If it's passed in the spring, we start getting money toward the end of next year, toward the end of next year, first part of this year. Timing's in here, I don't remember right offhand. If we wait till November, we're waiting almost a year and a half from now to see any money coming in. And that's why I would like to see it on in the spring. Okay.
What if it doesn't pass? Not necessarily because of us, but, I mean, I knew Shiloh and Crispin, what if it doesn't pass because of their towns, not us?
It's all, well, it has to pass by,
Right.
so it doesn't, it's just countywide, everybody has to vote. So that's gonna be true in any election. Are you gonna stay though long enough for a vote, Amy? Or you've already think you have voted properly? Okay.
I feel like I already have,
Okay.
I wanted it in the spring, so,
Okay.
and I think if we're going with majority, if no one's changed their mind.
Well, we can vote, and everybody,
Yeah, can we-
they got a right to vote however they want to. So, hey, I'll let you vote first if you gotta go.
So,
You're voting
What-
on the
what's the motion?
spring ballot. The
November?
motion is, should we put a resolution on for the spring?
Yeah.
And you said no. But you want to, someone needs to take the motion, someone needs to make the motion and
So
second.
made.
Your resolution doesn't say any date
It does on the
Oh,
resolution.
it's primary ballot.
Yes, it
okay.
does. It has to say,
Okay,
yeah.
it's been moved as, who seconded?
I don't know if anybody did.
Wait a minute.
Somebody seconded,
You
maybe
gotta-
seconded.
You gotta read the motion out.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no motion right now.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Yeah.
It's right here. At this time, I'd ask the board to approve resolution for the school facility 1% tax for the spring ballot. And there's a motion.
Made the
a
motion.
second, And you made the second. Okay, now we're gonna vote.
Okay, we've had a motion to approve the school facilities 1% sales tax resolution on the primary ballot. Any more discussion? Heisen,
No.
Sanchez,
No.
Tuttle,
No.
Bailey, Knopfel,
No.
Mathis,
No.
Idle is yes. The motion was defeated, so we will not have it on the spring ballot.
We had several informational items that John attended. We had several committee meetings. We did two, yeah, he attended for Cindy as well. The board has two committees that are required to meet every year, and it's Behavioral Intervention Committee and Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee. And we held those on the 8th at Mayo School back-to-back, and John, you were there. I kind of summarized it
Yeah.
here.
There-
Anything you wanted to?
I did like what Jeremy had with his handbook with the rules and all that in the whole handbook or the agenda. I think that's a great idea. And that was one of the things that was brought up, and just, I mean, it was a very good session, and I'm very happy I sat in on it.
Okay. Yeah, they did review handbooks. We talked about behavior interventions that we currently use with students who need more interventions in our PBIS plan that we utilize. So I did want to make note in our minutes that those two committees did meet, and they are required board committees. We also held an RTI meeting committee where we talk about our interventions that we use with students. We met with all the buildings, and that was very informative, and to see what each building's doing, how they're handling their interventions and their different tiers. And that's all I have on information.
Report of committees,
That was it. Just kidding, yeah.
public hearings and petitions, unfinished business, matters for follow-up, any new business?
I got one comment I wanna make, yeah, and it's actually, I was lucky enough to go to the concert from Wince that they had, 2 weeks ago. If you ever get a chance to go hear the kids sing out at the new hall at the recital, I was amazed. For 4th and 5th graders, they had mics in there, but they sounded as good as high school kids did. It was awesome. To see the kids, how they reacted, their eyes lit up, they had fun, they was really presenting, and there was a really good crowd there. So compliments to Wentz and, you know, the choral teachers, both Jonathan and Megan, they did an awesome job. To follow up with that, 3 or 4 days later, the high school had their chorus band and jazz band in there, and they did an awesome job as well. So, I mean, our kids are doing a great job in the extracurriculars, so.
I think Mayo.
Mayo did too.
Mayo had theirs just the other night, and I wasn't able to make it to
There was a
theirs.
board meeting.
I had another board meeting, so I couldn't make that one, so I'm sure they did well too, so.
In the same vein, we should probably recognize the Mayo girls 7th and 8th grade
Oh,
basketball.
yeah.
Yes.
Seventh grade went to state and 8th grade went to sectionals.
And I think the team
And the
that
team
was
that
playing for
beat-
state.
Yeah, they're
The
playing
team that
tonight
beat
for
Mayo's
state
playing for the
championship.
championship.
Yeah, Pleasant Plains.
Any other new business? I'd like to revert the order of prior business, we need an executive session. Can I get a motion for adjournment? All in favor?